Ed, I've got great news. Romney won South Dakota.
But not much more.
That's right. It was unfortunately it wasn't a good night for Mitt Romney, and maybe an even worse night for America.
Yes.
Let's talk about the percentages a little bit, Ed. 58% of South Dakota voters supported Mitt Romney. And just slightly behind that, 57.5% supported Kristi Noem.
Right.
And we know some of the other stories, but I think the more interesting story to me is what happened on these ballot issues. You were watching those, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
So was I, and so were a lot of you. And it was exciting to know that we do not expect a 1 cent increase. It's 25% increase in our sales taxes.
Yes,
That's
I
a very
think
good thing.
I think that was the most important measure on the ballot, right there, to
Well-
draw the line on taxes.
Well, it was, and 57% or so of the electorate agreed with you and me. But there are a couple of other things that I believe speak to the governor's leadership. The Referred Law 14 and Referred Law 16, both the governor's babies. And what he called the Large Project Development Fund
Yes.
failed, and it failed by 58%. Now that was the one that took from the poor and gave to the rich. Not really a good plan.
Not at all.
But the one that really was significant was his dictate from peer on education.
Yes, repudiated by the voters.
Absolutely. Nearly 70% of the voters said that was a bad idea.
And obviously, this crossed a number of lines with parties and whatever. I mean, I've seen some liberal people that were vehemently against it.
Yes, so it gives us hope that there's still hope in South Dakota. A couple of other interesting things, just quickly. The report card frenzy that we've seen over the last couple of years, people should pay attention to that. There will no longer be a couple of state senators. Our friend Art Frisley and Kent Junke both lost their races. And their report card grade in the latest report card, comparing their votes to the party platform, 35%.
Wow.
And one of them lost at 51.5%. The other one lost 53%.
Wow.
These report cards mean something. People are watching votes. And then in the House, a couple more Republicans lost. But the question is, where does America go?
Well, I believe, I have always believed that our choice for nomination for the national office for president was flawed to begin with because of this idea of go along to get along, compromise, and staying toward the middle of the road. I think that's been, I think that's the conventional wisdom, if you will, but I don't think it's worked since 1980.
Well, Romney, even in his concession remarks, was talking about reaching across the aisle. Now, that sounds glorious. That sounds bipartisan. But the truth of the matter is, it's code for the word compromise.
It's code for compromising on your principles.
Yes. Compromise isn't an intrinsically evil word, but when it comes to principles, there can be no compromise.
Exactly.
But that's not the way the Republican establishment sees it, and it's not the way Mitt Romney saw it. I believe that's one of the reasons Republicans have lost. I believe that's one of the reasons Mitt Romney
When I looked at it last night, it came to me that the last person that really stayed close to principle in his entire career was Ronald Reagan. In 1980, he ran on principle and he lived it.
Yes.
And since then, we have been only marginally successful as Republicans in capturing the presidency. You remember the squeaker with Bush, hanging chads and so on and so forth.
Lord.
And then two weak candidates in the last two elections, John McCain and now Mitt Romney, who stayed close to that center line and pretty much got run over by the liberals.
It's encouraging to see that there are some bright shining stars One of them is our man, Michelle Bachmann. She squeaked it out and saved that seat. And that's a woman who lives her conservative principles.
Yes, she does.
She's a Christian in word and deed.
Yes.
So what do we do in America? Now we have one last hope in Washington, D.C. That's the House of Representatives.
Yes, and really there's 50 last hopes.
Yes.
Because it resides in the states.
That's
the states must go out there and assert their authority under the Constitution. And that's the only way our liberties and freedoms are going to be protected from this this president that doesn't seem to be feel limited with anything.
History would tell us our hope is misplaced if we trust it to the House of Representatives in D.C. But our hope is large if we can elect conservative, principled state leaders, governors, and state legislatures that will defend principles and have some backbone.